Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this broadcast of Black Talk Radio News, Views, and Music. I am your host. My name is Scottie Reid, and got one of those serious programs for you tonight. We will be joined in just a moment by Pastor Omar Wilks. He's been on the program in the past, I believe shortly after Aiyana Jones, 7-year-old Ayana Jones, was killed in Detroit by police officer Joseph Weekley, and that occurred in 2010. And so he staged a big rally in Detroit, traveled from New York, went to Detroit with another lady. I don't remember her name, but she was an actress. She had a couple of TV roles, and she was really touched by the story, having a daughter herself. And so those two worked together, and they put together that rally in Detroit. I believe that was in 2010. Could have been early 2011. But he'll be joining us tonight in the first half of the program, and definitely interested in talking to him and getting some updates on the case. There's not a whole lot out there. That officer was indicted for manslaughter. He has not. I don't even think the trial started. It's very little information to be found via the internet. Nobody's really been blogging about it. But Pastor Wilks also has a rally coming up, but this time it's going to be in New York City on June 14th at Sean Bell Way near 143-08 94th Jamaica Avenue from 11:30 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. So we'll talk to him about that as well. And we have our guest on the line. We want to welcome back to the program Pastor Omar Wilks. It's good to speak to you again, brother. Although I do see, we communicate on Facebook and everything, but it's good to speak to you in person.
First of all, I just want to quickly say, Brother Scottie, thank you for once again inviting me on your program, and I want to thank you for the great service that you give to our community and the impact that you have with changing the minds, empowering the minds of our people. So I just want to thank you for that, brother. And I just want to also just quickly acknowledge a brother that I know well, Brother Johnson Henry, from Detroit, Michigan. He heads up one of our churches in Saginaw, Detroit. And he's doing a lot of good work out there dealing with police brutality, black-on-black crime, and also instituting programs that deal with black history. So I just want to, give him a quick shout-out just to let him know I appreciate his work that he's doing with the Unison Pentecostal Church in Saginaw, Michigan.
Well, we certainly appreciate him as well, because we need all our community leaders getting involved in the struggle daily. So we appreciate his work. But brother, again, Pastor Omar, tell people a little bit about yourself first and the church you represent, because I remember the first time I interviewed you, I loved that history that you gave at that church. If I remember correctly, didn't you say John Brown was helped, they were helping to hide him at one time?
That's a good point you raised. The church where we meet up at is downtown Brooklyn. And downtown Brooklyn area was a major stop on the Underground Railroad. Actually, downtown Brooklyn was the spot in the United States where major abolitionist activity took place. And so the church, Unison Pentecostal Church, the location we meet at, was an actual stop on the Underground Railroad on 227 Duffield Street, downtown Brooklyn. And John Brown, he was like right in the area on the next block from us, which was Bridge Street Church. And now it's a school now. And John Brown spoke there. Frederick Douglass spoke there. The location where our church meets up at, a family by the name of the Truesdales. They were abolitionists from the downtown Brooklyn area, and they hid many of the enslaved Africans in their basement and everything. And so where we're located, it's at a historic location, And it's really fitting for our ministry, the type of ministry we have, which is a social justice ministry. We, as a church, believe that our responsibility as a church is to transform what we read from thin paper to thick action. We have a moral obligation to be where people are hurting. And what we try to do is walk in that same tradition of John Brown, Frederick Douglass, Reverend J.W.C. Pennington, and Henry Ward Beecher, and many others. We try to continue to be a link in that long chain of struggle. All we are is just a continuation of the sacrifices that our ancestors gave and everything. And so even people like Harriet Tubman, she even passed through the area where we currently have our church services and everything. And so there's a lot of history in that area and everything. And one of the things that we try to emphasize as a church, as a church community, is that our job is not to go to church, jump up and down, skin and grin. We got the Holy Ghost screaming hallelujah, but we got to be about doing. We have to get out in our community. One of the things that my former teacher once told me, and it always stuck with me, Brother Scottie, is that the world is our parish. We have been called to pastor the globe. The world is our parish. We have been called to pastor the globe. Mm-hmm. And so when I started Unison Pentecostal Church, when I founded Unison Pentecostal Church, I came out of the gates of social justice ministry with that kind of approach to my ministry. And since I founded my church, the church, Unison Pentecostal Church, we haven't turned back. And all we are trying to do is just be a continuation of what our ancestors laid down in sacrifice for us. Fortunately, I thank God, I can't talk about what I'm doing now without acknowledging, my roots and everything. And, I was born in 1980, May 30th, 1980, in Brooklyn, New York. And I grew up in a time when poverty was at an alarming rate. And so I grew up with an awareness of what was going on around me. And I had family members that was engaged. They were part of the Black Panther Party at that time, and also the Black United Front. And so I grew up around this kind of environment as a young child and everything. And not until I turned like 18 years old, that's when I really began to become, to step in the realm of activism myself. And since 18 years old, I'm now 32 years old. I'm now 32 years old, but since 18, I've been trying to be on the front lines.
That's like your age of consciousness, so to speak. Mine was a little bit later, and it came through hip hop. To be real about it, my social activism, it came from Public Enemy, listening to their songs on the radio, and then later, buying the cassette or the CD. And so that's your age. That was your age. And not saying that you wasn't paying attention to the environment you grew up in, but that's when, it really came together and you made a conscious decision to be aware of your community.
That's right. You're absolutely right, brother. And, and one of the things also to piggyback off that point you raised, brother, is, we're always going to be in a stage of learning. As activists, and this is what's exciting about activism, it's hard work, exciting at the same time, because we're trying to bring about change in our communities. And as we step out into our activism, trying to bring about change in our communities, challenges to always remember is, I remember Adelaide Stanford, a great educator right here in New York City. She said, our challenge as activists, as young leaders, is to inspire the uninspired. and everything. And so it is our duty as activists to get out into our communities, to tap that potential. We're sitting on a reservoir of so much potential in our communities, untapped potential. It's our challenge to bring the best out of the people in our communities.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor Omar.
I'm sorry about that, brother. I was saying that the same thing you're doing, you serve as a model of what us other brothers should be doing. And so you really set a great example for us black men. And so I thank you, my brother, for your integrity and for being a role model to me. So I just want to personally say thank you to you.
Well, I really don't know what to say except for thank you for that acknowledgement. And I'm just doing, you mentioned God earlier, I'm feeling what I feel the Creator has inspired me to do, where my talents lie. We go on a path through life, and for me, things just kind of came together. I went through the military. I learned communications and, not really thinking about how I was going to use that other than work for like maybe a cable company or something like that, or a telephone company, or, just many directions from what I did in the military. But I'm basically using the backbone of communications to, create a black independent radio network. And so, I do think there's a lot of untapped potential. I didn't really have mentors. Maybe I would have got on the path earlier if I had, mentors or access to hear people like you and other activists speak. Most of the public radio dedicated to black radio is music. And I like music, but I like to hear information being shared too. You know what I'm saying, brother? So, thank you for that. Now, tell us, you talked about the whole world being your pastor, the social activism and the social theology. So I guess that kind of like led you to Detroit. What sparked you or moved you to go take up the cause of getting justice for little Aiyana Jones?
That's an excellent question, my good brother. I've been involved in many different police brutality cases, local issues. I've been involved in international issues. On the local front, I dealt with, I went to jail. I did civil disobedience and went to jail for Amadou Diallo. I went to jail for Sean Bell. I did a lot of organizing around Amadou. I did a lot of organizing around Patrick Dorisman, and in a lot of other cases I've been involved in on a local front and everything. And I've also been involved in international issues, whether it's the Darfur struggle. I've been to jail on that issue. I've been to jail for Occupy Wall Street and everything. And so all of these different experiences help sensitize me to what's going on with our people all across this country and across the African continent and across the world. We are people, as black people, we are under attack. Our sense of somebodyness has been under attack, systematic racism, and me as a black man growing up in America, and me as a young minister, face racism. Even when I walk in the door, I still experience racism, so I know how it feels to be singled out as a black man. I know how it feels to be profiled by the police. And so all of these experiences, along with the activism I've been involved in, led me to the Aiyana Jones case. And it was on May 16th. It was May 16th, or either May 17th. It was actually May 17th. I was sitting at home on the couch watching the news. I think it was CNN. And it flashed across the screen that a young 7-year-old was killed by a special response team. And so it automatically caught my ear. And so I began to listen. I went on the internet to try to find out more information and everything. And I learned that it was a little 7-year-old girl, Aiyana Jones, that was gunned down by the police, the special response, Detroit special response team. And as the week unfolded and new reports came out about what happened on the night, Aiyana, on the early morning, Aiyana Jones was killed. It even touched my heart, even in a more dramatic way. Because not only was this a girl, an innocent little girl, but Aiyana Jones is my daughter too. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a little daughter. My daughter's 7 years old right now. She's the same age as Aiyana Jones right now. And so, as I saw and began to hear the stories that were coming out about what led up to Aiyana Jones' killing, I was deeply touched. And I must honestly say, my good brother, is that I cried, man. I sat here and cried. You know, and every time I would look at my daughter, I would see Ayana Jones. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, there's no way I can sit down here in Brooklyn, New York, as a black man and do nothing about it. There's no way I can sit and hide behind the safe securities of stained glass windows and do nothing about it. There's no way I can sit here in New York City when my ancestors spilled their blood, sweat, and tears so I can take a stand as a black man and fight while people are suffering in this way. There's no way I can just be silent when my ancestors, the Freedom Riders, sat down at lunch counters so that way I can stand up as a black man in the time I live in and to pick up the torch and make a difference for the next generation. And so with this deep feeling that was boiling inside of me, I said to myself, I'm going out to Detroit. I don't have the money. I don't even know how I'm going to get there. I don't got a dime in my pocket. But I believe that where there's a will, there's a way and everything. And if I just believe, I can will it into existence.
I believe that too, so I can relate. So you willed it into existence, and how did that come about? I mean, who did you reach out to? Who did you think to reach out to there? The family first, or, you know, tell us about that.
And so I reached out to, the first thing I did, reached out to some of my family members to see if they can make contributions and everything. Mm-hmm. What they could and everything. You know, they made some contributions. Thankfully, you know, they made some contributions, some big contributions and everything, but they contributed something. Also, I reached out to the community, you know, and people, you know, that I knew in the community. They made, you know, some contributions, which I'm thankful to them. And I still didn't have enough. And I said, how am I going to get, you know, how am I going to get this, you know, extra money and everything? And so I actually went into my rent money, you know what I'm saying, money that I had to pay bills with and everything. I went into my rent money, you know, knowing that it's going to take food off, you know, bread off of my table and everything, but I was willing to do that because I said to myself, my ancestors was willing to sacrifice, spill their blood, sweat, and tears, so that way, you know, I can do the things, I can have the certain freedoms I have today, then there's no way I can't make this sacrifice and everything. And so the rest of the money, I took it out of my bills and, you know, the money I usually pay for some of my bills and everything. And then I was able to get a ticket to Detroit, Michigan, to there and back. And to be honest with you, brother, I didn't even have money to sleep in a hotel. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even have money for that. I didn't know where I was going to sleep because I was going to stay over the weekend in Detroit, Michigan, because my flight was coming back a day and a half later. And so I didn't know where I was going to sleep, but I took a leap of faith. And I said to myself, I know God is going to be with me. I'm just going to step out on faith and I know things are going to work out when I get there, even if I have to sleep in the airport. I'm willing to do that and everything. And so when I went out to not to get over the Aiyana Jones case and everything, but when I got to Detroit and we had a demonstration and we completed our demonstration, a good brother by the name of Ron Scott had asked me, because I was going to head back to the airport and stay at the airport and just sleep overnight until my flight came. And Brother Ron Scott just asked me out the clear blue. He said, do you have a place to stay and everything? I said, nah, don't worry about it, Ron Scott, and everything. And, I'm going to stay at the airport. I'm just going to sleep there. He said, don't worry about that, man. I actually got a room that I had rented that I didn't use yet, at one of the hotels. In there and everything. And so the brother actually secured a room for me and covered the expense. So I will forever be grateful to brothers like Ron Scott, who was very helpful in that capacity. I'll forever be grateful for the help that the Better Detroit Youth Movement gave in terms of logistics, helping out with the logistics when we had our demonstration. I'm thankful to Brother Lee Gordon, who was very helpful in connecting me with individuals in Detroit, Michigan. And so, and also Carl Dix, who was very helpful in helping to organize. And also Jewel Allison, she played a role too. She was there and she helped do some organizing too. So I would like to also give her some credit.
Now, there isn't much. I was talking at the beginning of the program introducing, our topics for tonight. And so in doing my prep for it, I was like, well, let me do a Google search on Aiyana Jones and Officer Joseph Weekly and see what the latest is. And I really was kind of surprised I didn't find more articles on that, being that, this guy, Joe Weekly, got a high profile because he was on that crime reality cable show called The First 48. And so, but he was, to bring people up to speed, he was indicted on manslaughter charges. And, how do you feel about that?
I'm not happy until he's arrested and he's in prison. He's in prison. Anything short than that, I'm not satisfied and everything. I've been involved in so many different cases like Sean Bell. I was very actively involved in that case and it went to court, but then it was thrown out of court. It was in the Justice Department also. And guess what Eric did? He said Sean Bell's civil rights was not violated under the Constitution of the United States. And so that's just an example of what I'm talking about. Now, in terms of Joseph Weekly, I believe that he needs to be arrested immediately, and I believe that he should be put in jail and everything. And so anything less than that, I'm not really happy. I'm not satisfied with and everything.
Well, Pastor Wilks, I do need to take a station identification break, but I want to go into some of the latest news, and then you can bring me abreast, but I just want to keep the timeline kind of, flowing, and cause many people probably haven't heard about this case. As hard as that is for me to believe, because, what I'm saying, we were so involved in promoting it and everything. And so I know our reach and a lot of black people heard about it, and it did get some mainstream press, but that 24 news cycle, after that's over, they hardly ever revisit cases unless it's a major update. So stick around for that, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Black Talk Radio News, Views, and Music with Scottie Reid, and my guest tonight is Pastor Omar Wilks, and we're discussing the latest in the Aiyana Jones case. And we're back. You're listening to Black Talk Radio News, Views, and Music with Scottie Reid. My special guest tonight back on the program Pastor Omar Wilks. And so, Pastor Omar, this is the latest I could find. And I had to go back to 2011, actually in October. Huffington Post published this article, Joseph Weekly, Detroit police officer charged in Ayana Jones' death during the first 48 raid. And so he was charged with, let's say, a Detroit police officer was charged in the slaying of a 7-year-old girl who was shot to death during a midnight raid on her home by a special unit that was being shadowed by a reality television show crew. Officer Joseph Weekly, a member of the Detroit Police Special Response Team, was indicted on an involuntary manslaughter charge after a nearly year-long Michigan State police investigation into May 16th, 2010 death of Aiyana Jones. And so we know the details, and I don't understand, I understand your point of view of why you're not happy, because we've done, we talked to you before on this, and throwing a flashbang grenade just blindly into an occupied house, and, I think we even talked about she was burnt, from this flash bang grenade, and involuntary manslaughter seems like very, very like a slap on the wrist.
No doubt about it. No doubt. There's no doubt about that, because, okay, let's look at it from this angle. Okay, the police officer came to the house, the police, the special response team, they came to the house claiming to look for a murder suspect. Okay, that's what they did. All right? They threw a flash grenade through the window, which landed on Ayana, as you just mentioned, which practically lit Ayana on fire. And after that, they kicked the door in and shot the little girl in the head. Now, instead of fessing up and saying, I made a mistake and I killed a child, I didn't operate according to police procedures, I may even lose my job. Instead of fessing up to, breaking police procedures and things along those lines, the cops didn't do that. But they went on to try to frame the grandmother. That's one thing. They tried to frame the grandmother. That the grandmother reached for the cop's gun and everything. And then that's what Joseph Weekly told the sergeant. And then he tried to change the story around after they took Ayana Jones' grandmother to the police station, drug tested her, hoping to find something on her so that way they can say in front of the media, yeah, look at her. She's a black grandmother who was participating in something that was wrong, so we shouldn't give her the benefit of the doubt. They were hoping to find something on the grandmother. They couldn't find anything because the grandmother never had a record, and the grandmother never reached for a gun. Not only that, Brother Scottie Reid, after they shot the little girl, they dragged the girl out the house like a garbage bag. Could you imagine dragging a baby out of, and you shot the baby, now you're dragging her out of the house. How do we know this? According to the lawyer, Jeffrey Feiger, he said that there's videotape that shows the cop dragging Ayana out the house like a rag doll.
Well, the first 48 had the tape.
First 48 had, yes sir. And then what makes this worse, Brother Scottie, is the cover up.
Yeah. I was thinking that because first 48, one of the producers got indicted. Exactly.
And so, this manslaughter charge and everything is really involuntary manslaughter charge and reckless endangerment with the gun.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a conspiracy here. We hear, especially when it's involving black defendants or Hispanic defendants, they throw the book at you. Let me just put it that way. I know how the game is played. We try to tell other people, they throw the book at you, hoping that you'll plead bargain with them and not even go to trial and prove your innocence, but they'll, pile all these charges on you, which will make it look like, you facing 100 years if you go to trial and convicted. So we willing to drop 8 charges and you just plead guilty to these 2 charges, you'll be out in 10 years. So we know how the game is played on us. But when it comes to these officers, what you just described to me, what I know about the case, what I just read, there was a conspiracy to cover this up. What if we had killed, okay, let's for example say, I had killed somebody and then I came to you came into my house but you knew about it and I was like, brother Wilks, man, come on. I got so much to lose. I'm doing so much good in the community. This was an accident, whatever explanation I want to give to you. And then you be like, okay, I'll help you. Man, both of us I'll be facing murder charges. You'll be facing conspiracy charges. And so again, like you said, that's a slap on the wrist. Involuntary manslaughter. Come on. That makes it look like it's an accident. It was an accident when, he was a star on that show. I heard they feature him more. I mean, they go into our communities with the mentality to do harm, to do violence. Brother Wilks, I was just reading a story about this 68-year-old black man who had like a life alert or something like that, and who thought maybe he was having a heart attack. And then, so I guess the police was called and not the EMT, but they knocked on the door. He was telling them, I don't need you. I'm okay. I'm all right. And so, police end up, make a long story short, breaking down the door, tasing him, and then shooting him to death in front of, I think, his teenage niece. Okay, they supposed to be coming to help him, and they killed him. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, you throwing a grenade. I don't care what you call it, flashbang, whatever. Grenade is a grenade. You know what I'm saying? And they just coming at us like we at war. And indeed we are, and people need to recognize that fact that I think the police department is waging a war against black people. And Ayana Jones was one of the latest casualties.
And something, to piggyback off that great point you raised, Brother Scottie, is this anything new?
No,
like you say,
it's not.
A history. We go all the way back to the slave era. I have this book on my shelf called Without Sanctuary, and I encourage the listeners to get that book. And you'll see a whole thousands of black men, women, and children who were lynched. And many of the people who lynched them were people in law enforcement. People have never gotten justice and everything. And so the racism that we experience as black people, sometimes I get fed up with many of our people who say, racism, we have a black president and racism is gone. That's the thing of the past, or racism is dying out. And what many people don't understand, that racism is systematic, and it has made its way through the policing system, educational system, and in many areas that affect our lives from day to day and everything.
So what happened with the trial, Brother Wilks? Because it sounded like earlier you said something like, they might have dismissed the charges, so what is the latest information? Because I haven't read. Now that's going back to October, and they saying he was charged. So I would think, people hear a speedy trial, that he would have went on trial by now, but I couldn't find an article talking about it.
Well, one thing I want to say quickly is, first, I just want to applaud, Aiyana Jones' mother and her grandmother. They've been true strugglers and fighters for justice in this time of this great loss of their grandchild. And I've been in communication with Aiyana Jones' mother and everything, and she just sent me a message a few weeks ago stating that there's a court hearing on the 15th. There's a court hearing that's going to be held in Detroit on the 15th, and the presiding judge is Judge Cynthia Gray Hathaway. Judge Cynthia Gray Hathaway. And so I decided to do my research, and I called Prosecutor Ken Worthy's office to find out more detail and everything. And then I contacted, I was able to get the number to Judge Hathaway's office, and I called. and everything, and they confirmed that there's going to be Joseph Weekley has to appear in court on the 15th of June. It's a public hearing. Anybody can attend, so I encourage the listening audience, if you live in Detroit or if you can make it to Detroit, try to make it to that public hearing. And there's a number, 313-224-2120. 313-224-2120. And they'll be able to give you the details of the time in the morning when the hearing is, the public hearing is going to start, and everything. And so so that's where it stands right now. The first hearing for Joseph Weekley is going to be on the 15th.
And see, I'm not seeing anything. I just went to Google News again and even, did a web search, and I'm not finding nothing mentioning this hearing. So I appreciate you breaking that news here on the program. And did she mention what this hearing was? Is it like discovery, evidentiary? Did she happen to say?
No, she didn't have those details. Okay. And everything. But according to the person to in Judge Hathaway's office, that's going to be his first appearance in court. Okay. Everything. The next court hearing will be the time when they actually start going through the evidence and stuff like that. So this is the first time he's actually appearing, and he has to go through those general procedures at the hearing, where they talk about the general incident of what happened on the night 7-year-old Aiyana Jones was gunned down by the police.
I do think the black press and black bloggers, there's been a lull in the case, but I think we need to renew our interest because, pretty soon they're going to be picking a jury. And I'm just straight up, Brother Wilks. I use the same tactics that the enemy used against me. And when I go to any convenience store, just not any, but quite a few in my area, they sell this little paper called the Slammer, and it has the mug shots of everybody that was arrested the night before. This is a daily publication, covering all the different counties in North Carolina. And so, I feel like, that's poisoning potential jury pools, because you're seeing somebody in a mug shot, the charges that, and people are buying this. And so I think we got to learn to use the media to our advantage as well. And so we got to start pumping this case, especially during the time, when they're picking juries. So I think that's why it's also important what went into the upcoming rally. And if I'm not mistaken, this one's going to be in New York City, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, can you tell people the details about the rally?
Thanks for giving me this opportunity, Brother Scottie. Well, one thing is on June 14th, Unison Pentecostal Church, along with other churches and organizations in our community and just concerned individuals, this rally will be a continuation of many of the different rallies we've had in the past, which we had a rally, as we mentioned, in Detroit, Michigan, one in Washington, D.C. We had a lot of different ones, in New York City and other places across this country. But this one is crucial because the following day is Joseph Weekley's scheduled court appearance. Mm-hmm. We want to make it clear that, Ayana Jones, we have not forgotten about Ayana Jones, and we are demanding the immediate arrest and imprisonment of Officer Joseph Weekley of killing and the cover-up of 7-year-old Aiyana Jones. And so, Brother Scottie, this action, Aiyana Jones action rally will be on June 14th. That's the day before the court appearance of Joseph Weekley. It will be on June 14th at 11:30 a.m. through 1 p.m. This is going to be held at Sean Bell Way. That's a significant spot because that's the spot where Sean Bell was killed and everything. And that's Sean Bell Way is in Jamaica, Queens. And a number where you can reach me at is on my telephone is 347-225-7828. That's the number you can reach me at. Now, another thing is that many people may not be able to come all the way to New York for whatever reason. you can organize where you are. Organize something where you are to remember Aiyana Jones. One of the things that we're asking everybody to do, those who can't make it to New York for whatever reason and everything, is that they still can be involved in some capacity. We have a call-in campaign. We're asking people to call the judge, Cynthia Gray Hathaway, call her office. Each day we're having people call in to demand the arrest and imprisonment of Officer Joseph Weekly for killing Aiyana Jones and participating in the cover-up. So you can still call in and just your phone call. Never think a simple phone call can't have an impact. You'll be surprised the impact it has. So I want to encourage people out there, never underestimate the power of just a phone call and everything. And so the number you can call is 313-224-2120. 313-224-2120.
I certainly agree with you with that, because you maybe just you by yourself, if one person called and say, hey, I want justice in this case, I want you to make sure everything is done properly so there's no mistrials and all that old bull crap, or but if it's just one, they might ignore me. But then if it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's, we want to encourage people, but, I may not be able to come to New York City, but what I'm going to do in solidarity with you, I'm going to start encouraging people to do on that day is I'm going to make a YouTube video and just give my thoughts on that case and let people know, the information about the trial tomorrow, and mention, the rally, the action rally for Aiyana Jones that you sponsoring, because, we need to use these tools to spread the word, and we certainly saw that in the Trayvon Martin case when everyone was posting, their pictures of themselves in their hoodies, and I participated in that, took a little picture of my 2-year-old grandson, and so I want to encourage people to think about that as well.
That's right. And can I add one quick thing, Brother Scottie?
Sure.
One of the things that we don't want to let the Justice Department off the hook.
Right. I was going to bring that up. So go ahead. I'm glad you segued to that.
Because the Justice Department, as we know, Congressman John Conyers had called for Eric Holder to launch an investigation to the Aiyana Jones killing. Through pressure from different entities and everything, they eventually launched the investigation, but they never followed through with their investigation and everything. And so our issue is not just Joseph Weekly, but what about the other officers?
Right.
That in the killing and the cover-up of Aiyana Jones.
Right.
So that's an area where the Justice Department can step in and say, okay, Kim Murphy, Prosecutor Kim Murphy of Wayne County, Detroit, Michigan, there's something you ain't doing right, because I don't understand how you just came up with just Joseph Weekly's name. What happened to the other ones and everything? And so that's where the Justice Department can actually have an impact, because Kim Murphy, she dropped the ball and everything, and it seemed like she just tried to bring up Joseph Weekly's name and exclude the other officers. There was more than 5 officers that participated. And what happened?
And that's where those conspiracy charges would come in.
Who threw the flash grenade through the window? We know Joseph Weekly shot the gun, but who threw the flash grenade on Aiyana, which lit her on fire? You know what I'm saying? And so these are things that we have to deal with. We can't, as a people, we have to have an insult level. You know what I'm saying? We can't allow people to define us as a sleeping people, because if we let people define us, they can confine us, and that's what's happening in many areas of our community.
And when you say that the Justice Department didn't follow through on it, I'll certainly start looking up some information on that. But I mean, what did they announce? They just put out a press release. We opened up an investigation, and that was it. Did they ever, state, well, we finished our investigation and these are the results, or I guess we had to put in some phone calls. Is it ongoing? What's going on? So, I mean, as far as what you know, can you clarify better for us? They never followed through with it.
They never followed through with it. I've been calling the Justice Department, leaving messages with them and everything, and I haven't gotten a response. Haven't gotten a response back yet. I even contacted Kim Worthy's office, Prosecutor Kim Worthy, to try to get details on what is the Justice Department doing. I actually called last week with that specific question: is what is the Justice Department doing? And she told me that they can't answer that because they don't deal with what the Justice Department is working on. And this is coming from the prosecutor's office and everything. And so, like you said, Brother Scottie, is that we have to keep making phone calls. We can't let them off the hook.
Interestingly, been involved in a case, reporting a case about Devontae Sanford, who was framed by Detroit police up there. And it was through, talking to people in Detroit and then them pointing me to some articles that I found out that Detroit is already under, I forget the exact legal language they use, but they're on like probation and they're monitored by the feds for civil rights violations.
Wow.
That came out in my research on Devontae Sanford's case.
Wow. That's amazing.
So Kim Worthy does, she knows about it. I'm pretty sure, and I don't really want to get into, cause I'll say some things that's not so nice about her, but, she's the prosecutor. I'll try to, keep my cool, but, definitely, we're glad that you are planning this rally, and we want to expand it on the ideal that you said if we can't, come to New York City, we can do something in our own community. And I hope people have the presence or the equipment to record it, and post this stuff to YouTube, cause we got to influence that jury pool, just like how, that's the reason, Brother Wilks, they demonize us in the media and in the press, and it's all poisoning the jury pools, and so they can convict us. So we got to use that same tactic against them. So before we close out your segment, Brother Wilks, I always get a guest last word. If you want people to remember anything about Aiyana Stanley Jones in this case, what would that be?
It would be that Ayana Jones, we have a responsibility to take a stand for this little innocent little girl, because Ayana Jones is our child too. And it's always important to remember that to be silent about evil is to be complicit with it. To be silent about evil is to be complicit with it. And so I want to encourage people to take a stand for truth and justice.
Well, thank you. And brother, please keep me up to date so I can keep my listeners up to date. And you have a great night.
God bless you. Thank you, Brother Scottie.
You're welcome. And so that concludes this segment, our interview with Pastor Omar Wilks. Definitely participate. So like he said, you don't even have to travel. You don't even have to travel to New York City if you can't go be there, but New York City, y'all got to turn out for that, because there's how many people in New York City? 1 million, 2 million, so y'all got to turn out for that so that we can get, press on it. I really don't like the corporate press, but if you do something big enough, they'll take notice, and it helps in the mission to get our media out to the masses through them. But we definitely can't depend on them. So that's why we, do our own media, and simply by using the tools available on the internet like YouTube. I mean, you got technology in the palm of your hand, cell phone, cameras. We don't have no excuse. We can just make our media, and it does make a difference. Like he said, one phone call makes a difference. These YouTube videos and other stuff that you can post to Facebook, it makes a difference. And so we got to be about it and not just sit around and talk about it. So I'm going to keep the music rolling. We'll take a music break. Definitely music is good for the soul. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.